What if the people you've lost aren't really gone, and two of history's most mystically gifted saints were shown exactly where they are right now? There is a question that every grieving heart eventually asks in the dark: where did they go? Not in the abstract, philosophical sense, but personally, urgently, achingly. Where is my mother? Where is my child? Where is the person whose absence has left a shape in every room of my life? The world offers distractions, therapists offer coping strategies, and time is supposed to heal, but none of that touches the raw certainty that love doesn't just disappear. Something in us refuses to believe it does. And here is the extraordinary thing: we are not wrong to refuse. Because two of the most supernaturally gifted souls the Catholic Church has ever produced, a young Polish nun named Faustina Kowalska and a scarred Italian friar named Padre Pio, were both given direct, detailed, and repeated access to what lies beyond the veil. Not metaphors. Not pious impressions. Vivid, specific revelations about where our loved ones go and what they are doing right now. And what they were shown will change the way you think about loss forever. Let's start with Saint Faustina, who died in 1938 at just 33 years old after living one of the most mystically intense lives ever documented. Jesus appeared to her so regularly that she recorded their conversations in a spiritual diary spanning hundreds of pages, a document the Church eventually recognized as one of the most important spiritual texts of the 20th century. In her visions, Faustina was transported to both heaven and purgatory, not as a spectator looking through foggy glass, but as a witness who could see, feel, and understand what was happening to the souls there. What she saw in purgatory dismantled every cold, punitive image you may have inherited. She did not encounter souls in anguish crying out for justice. She encountered souls in an almost unbearable intensity of longing, not suffering in the way we typically imagine suffering, but burning with a single, consuming desire, to be fully united with God, and to see once more the people they loved on earth. Faustina was staggered by the depth of awareness these souls carried. They were not asleep, not blank, not stripped of their personalities. They remembered. They recognized. They knew exactly who they had left behind, and they held those names with a tenderness that was, if anything, more refined and more fierce than anything possible in this life, because in purgatory, every trace of selfishness has been burned away, leaving only the pure gold of love. She described the souls there as being in a state of active, urgent anticipation. Think of it less like a prison and more like the threshold of a great reunion, a room just outside the banquet hall, where you can hear the music and smell the feast, and you know beyond any doubt that the door is going to open. The souls in purgatory are not wondering whether they will make it. They already know the outcome. What they are enduring is the final stretch of a journey they are absolutely certain will end in glory, and in reunion. And here is the part that should move every person who has ever stood at a graveside: those souls are aware of us. They are not cut off from the living the way we are cut off from them. They know when we pray for them. Faustina recorded that her own prayers, especially the Chaplet of Divine Mercy, brought what she described as waves of relief and acceleration to the souls she prayed for, as though her intercession was physically carrying them forward. The barrier between us is not mutual. We cannot see them, but they can feel us. Now, if Faustina gives us the tender, interior revelation of what the afterlife looks like from the inside, Padre Pio gives us something equally powerful: the lived, daily, ordinary experience of a man for whom the dead were simply part of his regular neighborhood. From the earliest years of his priesthood in the mountain village of San Giovanni Rotondo, Pio was visited by the souls of the deceased as routinely as he was visited by the living. They would appear in his cell at night, wake him from sleep, stand at the foot of his bed and ask for prayers. He treated them not with theatrical astonishment but with the calm, pastoral attentiveness of a good parish priest, because to him, that is exactly what they were: members of his extended flock who happened to be on the other side of a door he could see through. People who came to him in grief, and they came by the thousands, from every country in Europe, would receive from him something more powerful than condolences. They would receive information. He knew things about the deceased that no living person could have told him. He would describe conversations, reference private memories, convey specific messages of love and reassurance. Widows left his confessional not simply comforted but convinced, because what he told them was too precise, too personal, too accurate to be anything but real contact. He consistently described the relationship between the living and the dead not as a severance, but as a temporary geographical separation within the same eternal family. Your loved ones, he would say, have not left you. They have moved to another room in the same house. And they are waiting for you there. One of the most striking patterns across his encounters with the deceased is how many of them came to him specifically to ask for the prayers of their families. They were not passive. They were not resigned. They were reaching back through whatever means were available to them, urgently requesting the one thing that could help them complete their journey, the love of the people they had left behind, expressed through prayer. Pio would pass these messages on, gently but directly. Your husband asks you to pray for him. Your mother needs masses offered for her soul. Your son sends you his love and tells you he is not where you fear he might be. These were not vague reassurances crafted to make grieving people feel better. They were specific, actionable communications from one part of the family to another. What both of these saints are pointing us toward is a theological reality that the Church has always held but that modern culture has largely forgotten: the communion of saints. This is not a piece of pious vocabulary for Sunday use only. It is a description of actual, ongoing, living solidarity between every baptized soul that has ever existed, those in heaven interceding for us with full clarity and joy, those in purgatory growing in love and reaching back to us through prayer, and those of us still on earth who have the astonishing privilege of influencing the journey of both. The divide between the living and the dead is real, but it is not total. It is not a wall. It is more like a river, wide enough to separate, narrow enough to shout across. The bonds formed in a family are not accidents of biology. They are, both Faustina and Pio insist on this, in different words, the deliberate work of God. He weaves souls together through shared life, shared suffering, shared meals and shared faith, and that weaving is not something death can simply unravel. The parent who held you when you were sick, the spouse who knew your worst self and loved you anyway, the child whose laugh you hear in every quiet room, those connections were made by the hands of God, and they are still held in those same hands. They have not been discarded. They have been preserved in a place where nothing further can threaten them. Saint Faustina once recorded a vision in which she saw a soul she had prayed for pass through purgatory into heaven, and she described the joy of that transition with a vividness that is almost physically painful to read, because it made her realize, she wrote, that every single prayer offered for the dead is heard, is received, and produces a real effect. Nothing is wasted. Nothing bounces back unanswered. When you kneel down tonight and say a rosary for your father, something happens. When you offer your Mass for your friend who died too young, something shifts. When you make a small, quiet sacrifice and whisper it in the direction of someone you love and miss, that whisper reaches them. This is the most countercultural message you will hear in a world that insists the dead are simply gone. They are not gone. They are changed, purified, and moving toward a fullness of life that we cannot yet imagine, and they are carrying with them the love they had for us, transformed by proximity to God into something cleaner and deeper and more real than anything we managed here. And someday, a day that is certain even if its timing is not, there will be a reunion that makes every earthly reunion look like a rehearsal. The table will be set. The names will all be called. And every person you have loved and lost will be there, not as a ghost, not as a memory, but as themselves, finally, completely, and forever. Until that day, we are not helpless. We are not simply waiting. We have work to do, beautiful, urgent, love-filled work. Pray the Chaplet of Mercy for the souls in purgatory. Offer Mass intentions for those you have lost. Make small daily sacrifices and dedicate them to a specific soul. These are not performances of grief. They are acts of love that pierce the boundary between this world and the next, and they make a difference that no eye can see but every heart is built to believe. The saints are not silent on this. Faustina and Pio spent their lives shouting it from whatever platform they had, a diary, a confessional, a mountain chapel in southern Italy. The message is the same from both of them, and it is the same message at the heart of everything we share here at Living Hope: death is not the end of love. It is love's next chapter. And that chapter is already being written, right now, on the other side of everything you can see. If this gave you comfort today, share it with someone who is grieving, because this message was made for them. And if you want to keep going deeper into the faith that holds us through every loss, subscribe to Living Hope. We are here every week, and we are not going anywhere.